help us understand, because it's easy for us to get wrapped into the geopolitics of it all. Help us understand the horrors of the war that we've seen so far.
Yeah, regardless of choosing sides, regardless of painting, this guy is the bad guy and this guy is the hero of this narrative, it's really important to focus on the families, the women, the children. I have interviewed many who were actively hiding in their basements with toddlers, with screaming babies, trying to just get out of the country. All they asked me for was help me get a train ticket or a bus ticket. And that's when the journalist doesn't want to insert herself into the story, but really, we're in an active situation where we just want to get these people out of harm's way. I have one family that got themselves to Germany. I have another group of 100. This was a Jewish organization that just started on the ground in Ukraine and just got themselves out of the country and into France within the last 24 hours. So these are real people. These are, people who never imagined. When we talk about the threat from Russia, it was always, you have to harden these soft targets like your email, like your cyber infrastructures. It was never about believing that tanks would roll into your city or that there would be, these nuclear plants that would be set on fire within a 5-mile radius of your home. So these are the real stories of war, and unfortunately, very, very real and extremely devastating for the people of Ukraine.
Josh, my theory that I've been working with, especially post-COVID, is that we are run by inept liars in our leadership roles. And I think the thing to do with that is to never believe a thing they say and consider that perhaps the opposite is true, or at least be very skeptical, cynical perhaps even, of the easy, simple narratives that were being thrown our way. A, what do you think about that? B, your recent article is questioning some of the narratives of good guy, bad guy, Russia bad, Ukraine good, et cetera. How do we need to think about this all right now?
So we should be skeptical at a bare minimum. We should probably be outright cynical at an absolute maximum. Mike, I cannot for the life of me figure out why people seem to be painting this narrative in terms of the stark black versus white moral dichotomy. And I guess I understand it to an extent. Americans kind of like an oversimplified narrative. I mean, our media likes to kind of shoehorn everything into this kind of very, very easy kind of thing. The media loves to try to get like a good guy versus bad guy, Superman, Batman versus comic book villain style story here. But the situation that we're facing right now in Russia and Ukraine is a very complex and nuanced one. As recently as 2014, when Ukraine had a full-scale color revolution, they deposed the pro-Russia leader at the time, Viktor Yanukovych. They kind of imposed kind of a pro-Western, kind of European-aligned leader, and that's been more or less the status quo ever since then. But ever since that time, we have really kind of done a lot from our perspective here to not necessarily put Russia at ease. And I'm not saying that we should have kind of a pro-Russia, an accommodationist foreign policy vis-a-vis Putin, but surely the times necessarily call for realpolitik and a very large degree of prudence. Russia is simply not the threat that it was during the Cold War. They have the 11th largest GDP in the world. It is in many ways kind of a Persian Gulf-style failing petro state. As my governor here in Florida, Ron DeSantis, likes to say, in many ways, Vladimir Putin is kind of just a big kind of overblown gas station attendant. He's running a glorified gas station there. And there is no reason whatsoever why we should leave the possible Ukrainian ascension to NATO and things like that on the table. Ukraine is a deeply, deeply corrupt oligarchic state in its own right here. It is not a bastion of kind of US, UK, France style Enlightenment liberal democracy. At the end of the day, the American interest is sufficiently on Ukraine's side here. We do not want Ukraine to become the next Belarus, the next kind of Russian Putin puppet state. But we should not be like painting this as kind of the great fight for Western civilization. And when I see tweets like Lindsey Graham calling for Vladimir Putin's assassination, that is not grounded in reality, okay? It is time to de-escalate. It is time to kind of get us to the peace and negotiating table. The calls for escalation, let alone taking out Putin's head, I think are ridiculous at this point.
Hey, Slater Crusaders, there's so much going on with Russia and Ukraine. How do you make sense of it? To make sense of it, you got to go back 1,000 years to at least the year 988. That's one of the things we do on our special. But the most important thing we do is we analyze Vladimir Putin, the man. Why is he doing this? What is motivating him? Once you understand these things, then things begin to make at least a little sense. And that's what we do with our latest special, The Real Vladimir Putin. To watch it, download the First TV app and become a supporter.